There was a time when I had the super cliched bro science view that going vegan would make me all weak and skinny, it would ruin my gains. Now, 10 years later, I'm actually leaner, stronger, and I'm not obsessing over food, all with plants. So shameless plugging, shameless bragging, I should say, out the way. In this video, I want to share with you 5 big insights from my journey. Hopefully these will be useful to you. First up though, very quickly, meal of the day. If you're new, this is what we do. Breakfast bowl of oatmeal here. Quick oats, simply cooked in some water, would you believe, only. Got some raisins there, some cinnamon on top, some stevia to give it a little bit of sweetness there, some frozen blueberries. I've got some hemp seeds mixed in, which you won't quite make out. But yeah, really simple, quite, you'll notice, carb and not necessarily fat and protein dominant meal for my pre-workout meal. I'm going to the gym in about 2 hours. That is by design, but there's a little bit more information on that later on. So that's brekkie. Let's get into this. First insight, let's get this one out the way. Straight off the bat, let's talk about protein. And the big question that I get asked often on this is, Ryan, how much protein do you eat per day? It's funny, I never get asked how much fiber, or how much magnesium or selenium I consume per day, how many carbohydrates, how many grams of carbohydrates I eat per day. But everyone wants to know about the sacred macronutrient of protein, right? Of course. I eat 100 north of, in many cases, 140 plus grams of protein per day. Now, this comes with massive caveats and disclaimers. You should not right now hear that number and think, oh my goodness, my protein intake is too low or too high relative to Ryan's number. That is a number that's highly personalized to me and is in no way appropriate for you to simply copy and paste right now into your own diet. So that's the first thing to say. I've actually got a more in-depth video on how I calculate my own protein targets if you are curious to learn my formula for that. So I'll link that down below with a little bit more detail. But I wanted to get that out of the way straight off the bat. I'm looking at 140 plus grams of protein per day, but that is in no way, I want to be clear, advice to you. Now, in terms of favorite protein sources right now, I'm doing a lot of TVP or similar. So when I say or similar, I mean like a dried, soy mince or soy chunks or something like that. That are really cheap and available here, actually. Seitan is another thing that's actually a larger part of my diet here in Prague, because it's actually more available and cheaper than in the UK. And seitan is a really wonderful source, lean plant protein source. Of course, beans, lentils, often, what am I forgetting? Tofu, like something really obvious, tofu. And I am doing, as I talked about, I think in my last video, or perhaps penultimate, I am doing plant protein powders a little bit at the moment. So yeah, I would say these are the plant protein sources I'm leaning most on. And it's worth saying you get a couple of grams of protein here and there from your rice, from your oats and whatnot. There's something like 7 to 8 grams of protein in a cup of oats. So what I want to make clear here is, yes, I've got my sort of, what would you call them? Some people refer to them as primary sources of protein. But there's also little things that sort of tot up my protein intake throughout the day. I think a lot of people look at their diet and they go, oh my goodness, I might not be eating enough protein because I don't have that much of what Ryan just talked about, TVP and tempeh, but you get grams of protein elsewhere. You accrue protein elsewhere is what I'm saying. Now, there is quite a just conversation to be had about amino acids, but it's something I've grown increasingly dismissive of, to be honest, because I've seen that it doesn't actually impact my results. To really think too much about amino acids, there are genuine conversations about, all right, what about leucine, with many plant protein sources? Like, I don't want to sound hyper dismissive of those things, but when I look at my results, especially in the last 1 to 2 years, with muscle building in particular, I'm kind of like, I think it's okay, and I think I'm having a diverse enough range of whole plant foods and protein-rich, in particular, plant foods, to where I think over the course of the day, I'm happy with my amino acid intake. So that's protein out the way, checked off the list, thank goodness. Yes, it's really, really important, of course, for muscle and tissue growth and repair, but I do think it's often overemphasized, especially in the mainstream health and weight loss world. I think a lot of people that don't even strength train or are particularly athletic or are breastfeeding, what I'm saying is, I think a lot of people that don't actually require particularly high protein intake are very, very worried about having a particularly high protein intake. And I've always found the attention on protein to be rather disproportionate. For me, I have a higher protein intake, I would suggest, than the average person, and certainly I would suggest the average person in my audience, because of my particular physique goals. Once again, do not use my protein philosophy, or rather my approach to protein targets, as any kind of a benchmark for what you should do. Second insight from my journey, thinking beyond protein. What really shifted things for me was realizing that muscle building was only half the equation, and I actually needed to stay lean enough to reveal the muscle that I had. And when I was a little whippersnapper and I started getting into the gym and I was a little bit insecure about being, a skinny man at 18, 19 years old, I was all about, oh, it's the gains, bro, it's the muscle, muscle, muscle. And the beautiful thing that you realize when you're on the leaner side, and for men this is going to be south of 15% body fat, for women maybe 24% body fat and below. When you're on the leaner side, you actually wind up, it's really interesting, you actually wind up looking more muscular. The reason why is because you don't have all the body fat covering that amazing muscle separation. And when that all gets revealed, like muscularity, leanness rather, creates this sort of interesting illusion with regards to muscularity where you can actually look more jacked. And I've had a lot of folks comment to me in the last, especially this little fat loss phase that I've been in the last 3 months or so, a lot of people saying, oh my goodness, you look like you've put on size. And I'm like, no, I'm skinny. I feel skinny because I'm wearing t-shirts that 2 or 3 months ago were hugging the sleeves. This is a bad example. It's a sort of compression t-shirt, but that were hugging the sleeves. And now I put them on and my arms are like little twigs in there. I've absolutely lost size. I don't know that I've lost muscle necessarily because I'm stripping fat, but you catch my drift here. Leanness creates, when you're topless at least, is a wonderful muscularity. That's precisely why, even though again, this is something I made mistakes with in my young years, I'm not an advocate for bulking. I'm not an advocate for adding hundreds of calories to your daily diet in an effort to build muscle, because I think you should build muscle, but to the extent of adding, 500 calories to your daily diet, you're just going to be adding, for most people, pounds and pounds of fat. And for me, that's not worth it. I think I look better leaner, even if I have a little bit less muscle mass. Not that it's not that binary, because you can be lean and gradually add muscle over time. And that is now, after learning this mistake many times over, that is now my approach to this. I feel better, it's healthier, of course, and you still maintain that sort of more defined, slightly more sculpted look because you just don't have as much fat on you. And again, this provides the illusion of muscularity because you can see all the muscle separation, the insertions, the striations and whatnot. Again, you look more chiseled, even though you might have less muscle than bulked up version of yourself. And yeah, I think that's my formula now. It's like, stay lean, gradually build muscle, and over time, if you keep plugging away, you're going to look absolutely fantastic. So that's the second big insight for me, is I realized I needed dual focus, right? It wasn't just bulking and cutting, which is that kind of typical conventional gym bro paradigm. Rather, no, I need to get lean in the first place. And then, if I want to add muscle then, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because that's a way to consistently look good, rather than having these sacrificial phases of your life where you're bulking and you look atrocious because you're just putting on pounds and pounds of body fat under some kind of guise that, well, I'm building loads of muscle underneath this and one day it will be revealed, whilst developing all of these bad food habits, ironically, that make it harder to actually then get lean. Get lean, get that done, get that out of the way is my philosophy, and then build the muscle. Third takeaway from my recent journey, gym performance is really, really important. I'm not just going through the motions, I'm training with intention. When it comes to strength training or the more cardio stuff, whatever it is, I'm 100% in there, training with effort and energy and intention, and this makes a massive difference to my results. I see, not to speak judgmentally about other folks, that's their business. I see a lot of people in the gym and they're kind of like, they're showing up, and that's better than not showing up, don't get me wrong, but they're kind of giving 30 to 40%. They're not really pushing, and this leaves money on the table in terms of results. Strength training is a wonderful example of this. Rather than just going into the gym and lifting up weights and going through the motions, thinking about just moving the weight from A to B, there's a purpose, right? I'm trying to stretch and squeeze the muscle. I'm trying to stimulate and add pressure by increasing weight and reps over time, and that's what's going to force the muscle growth. So with the old barbell bench press is a very good example of this. Yes, the movement on a very surface level is I'm starting here, position A, and I'm ending here at the top in position B. But that is not just the movement to me. I'm thinking about it far more deeply than that, or I'm trying to at least, which is I'm starting here and I'm coming up and I'm stimulating correctly the pectoral muscles to force them to work, to apply pressure to them, and again, by adding more weights and or reps in time, hopefully increasing the stimulus, turning up the dial on the pectoral muscles, and this creating growth in time, right? So again, maybe this sounds like a very subtle thing, but young Rye getting into the gym did not know this. I thought I was going into the gym and just moving the weight, and that's what a good workout looked like. Well, it might be, but only if it's correctly stimulating the target muscle group that you're trying to work through, and not just pushing that dumbbell around completely uselessly, but thinking about the dumbbell, well, this is just a tool to really stimulate, stretch, squeeze the target muscle and get that pump. So I think that's my philosophy now is, number one, train with proper form. Get that down first, because a lot of people don't. They're just going into the gym and moving weights around without necessarily feeling anything in the target muscle area. So yeah, move with proper form, feel that weight, feel that pump, the proverbial pump that all the gym bros talk about, and then simply add weight and or reps, and this will force growth over time. And when it comes to the cardiovascular stuff, pushing yourself, and you know, you don't have to destroy yourself with this stuff. But when we're talking about going to that next level, again, under 15% body fat for men, under 24% for women, we're talking about just going beyond slim, and we're talking about getting lean and getting really that more fit, defined, chiseled, athletic physique. That requires, I think, a different level of intensity for you to turn up in the training. Insight number 4, I've been thinking about this one loads lately too. Another thing that aids performance in the gym is fueling correctly, obviously. But I think what isn't obvious, everyone thinks about protein when it comes to muscle building after workouts. But I think if you're walking into the gym, and again, whether this is for strength training or sort of a cardiovascular focus workout, if your glycogen stores are depleted because you haven't been eating many calories, or more specifically, many calories from carbohydrates, you think about this as fuel in the tank being the very obvious metaphor. You're not going to get very far. You're not going to have an amazing workout. This is particularly on my mind because as I get nearer, I observe to sort of 10, 11% body fat. I've been in this calorie deficit pretty much most days for the last 3 months. You know, the glycogen stores do get depleted, and I start noticing that I mess with a little bit more lethargy and fatigue in my workouts now than I did 2 or 3 months ago. And so having a mind on this, I'm thinking more cautiously about, okay, what is my pre-workout nutrition, or what is my nutrition the night before to have an amazing performance? So I think this is something that's really helping me get to the next level, actually. I think this isn't necessary for kind of the more beginner intermediate phase with working out or with fat loss or with muscle building. But later on, when maybe some of the other variables are quite sparing because you're in a calorie deficit, you've been in one for a while and you're starting to get pretty lean, there isn't much energy for your body to drag from elsewhere, I think this actually becomes more and more of a crucial sort of needle moving issue, more of a deal breaker for me. And so I think everyone talks about protein when it comes to muscle gain, but if you're not having an appropriate amount of carbohydrates in and around, before and around your workouts, you're not going to give yourself a chance to build any muscle because your gym performance is going to be so appalling. And so for me, my favorite carbohydrate sources, whether pre or post workout, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, but in particular, stuff I'm eating around workouts right now is quick oats rather than, I love rolled oats, but they're so fibrous that they have a slower digestion time. So quicker oats before the gym. Fruit is very, very fast digesting before my workouts as well. White and sweet potato, which I'm not having as much of now as versus when I was in Asia for obvious reasons. They love it over there last year. And so, yeah, but that's really fast digesting as well. These are the kind of carb sources that I'm leaning on most of all for fuel to go into those workouts feeling strong. Excuse me, I've just had to rejig my camera angle ever so slightly here. Our last reflection though, I think we've covered enough strategy stuff today, so I want to finish on something that more mindset related. You know, it's my favorite subject if you've been following me for some time, but I think the mindset stuff is fundamental. It opens the door to you actually being able to stick to the strategy stuff. A particular sort of mindset hat, let's say, that I've had to put on is treating that lean and fit, more athletic body, not as an outcome, but really as a lifestyle. Really visualizing the body as not something I obtain, but rather just a side effect from truly enjoying this process and embracing this is how I live now. I appreciate this stuff can sound a little bit woo-woo sometimes, but one thing I observed in the past when I treated the body, when I treated getting the six-pack like a thing that I wanted versus this is just how I live, this is a code or almost a philosophy that I live by, I always just ended up chasing it and never really kind of getting my mitts on it for very long. Because again, I was sort of framing it in my mind as the abs, the six-pack is something I get, and in order to get it, I have to fraudulently embody a certain set of standards and habits that I don't actually enjoy that much to get the thing. Whereas now the reframe being, no, I genuinely love living, eating, moving my body in this way. And the six-pack, again, rather cliched and cheesy, it is just a side effect. It is a cherry on the cake for appreciating and enjoying the process and lifestyle of this. But I do genuinely enjoy feeling really sharp. I do enjoy, weirdly, being in calorie deficit or being around maintenance and not kind of binging or doing anything crazy anymore. I really enjoy not eating out all the time and then feeling terrible because of those meals out. I enjoy being locked in and dialed in and really disciplined. I appreciate that process. I appreciate going into the gym. And like I talked about with gym performance in points 3 and 4 here today, I enjoy having an amazing workout versus just an okay workout because my goals aren't that inspiring, or I'm just acting from a place a bit more of mediocrity. And so when I really fully embrace, this is my code, this is how I live like a lean, fit person. I have more, again, not to sound super cheesy, more of an athlete's mindset now. And I like that. Well, what's going to happen subsequently? In time, of course, not instantly, but subsequently, you do get the body of somebody that lives that way. And that has taken me out of that sort of chasing paradigm, let's say, to where like, this is something I need, it's something external, it's something I have to get, it's something I want to obtain. Rather, no, I genuinely love the processes that actually provide or naturally create that thing. Does that make sense? Like, this is just how I live now, and embracing that. And this is something I talked about on Instagram recently, but shedding all the internal resistance that we have to just embracing the calorie deficit, the diet, the muscle building, the workouts, the healthy, active, fit lifestyle, whatever that looks like for you. You don't need to copy my formula or my goals. That, just embracing that without all the resistance of, but what if I can't, and well, I still love chocolate, and get over it. Like, you either want this thing or you don't. And really just embracing that, I think, has allowed me to move to that next level. So that's insight number 5. It's a bit of a long one, bit of a conceptual one, but treating this as a lifestyle, not an outcome that I'm chasing. So yeah, 10 years vegan, no meat, no whey protein, feeling stronger than ever. That's sincere. I say feeling stronger than ever. I am looking at my numbers stronger than ever. I think this is the best I've ever looked in my life, and that feels really, really wonderful. And I'm not perfect, like I still make mistakes, but generally this phase I'm in, this place I'm in right now, I've never felt this in control. I genuinely feel like I'm in charge of this process. And it's not like there's not a moment coming where I'm about to screw it up and go back to all the self-sabotaging behaviors that old Ryan used to engage in. I don't feel like I'm teetering on the edge, and that's a lovely and actually quite liberating feeling versus years ago when it felt like I was the slave, right? I was the one that was powerless to the food. It was in charge of me. You know, my little gremlin mind, that was the boss. Generally speaking, I feel super in control of my results. So 5 big reflections here from my recent journey. And if you're already slim, but you want what I've talked about today, that next level of definition, visible muscle, and that intentionality with living a fit lifestyle and feeling vital and sharp, if all of that resonates, that's exactly why I've rebooted my old vegan lean and fit test program, which is a more advanced version of Vegan Slim and Sustain. And this is for people that are serious about getting lean on a plant-based diet without obsessing, without burning out. We still need to make it sustainable, but this is now about going to that next level. As I say, we're not just getting slim, we're building that more lean, fit, athletic look and the lifestyle habits that come with it. So hit the link in the description if that interests you, in the description box below. I'll send you all the details there, and I'd love to show you what's possible and more about what I've learned in my journey lately. Or if you have 15 plus pounds to lose before you can even think about getting lean, and you're just trying to reach your BMI, your ideal healthy body weight range, then my main flagship Vegan Slim and Sustain coaching program is going to be the best fit for you. So I'll also link that along with Lean and Fit down in the description box below. So check those out. Okay, see you in the next video.